In this tutorial, we're going to learn about importing assets into Stingray. Alright, so now we're down to creating levels and importing assets into Stingray. This process is very simple. The first thing that we'll want to do whenever we import any assets of any kind is we want to make sure that we're organizing them correctly. Normally, assets will go in the content folder, so let's double click on that and let's create a new folder. You can do that by clicking on the new folder or new directory, or you can right click and create folder. Go ahead and give it a name, and I'm going to call this buildings and hit enter. Now with this I'm going to create, you know what, actually let's rename this folder because I think I would want to create a models folder and then categorize it inside of that. So what we can do is we can rename this. To rename a folder, you'll right click and hit rename. So you'll select that and just give it a new name. So we'll call this models and hit enter. You'll see that it takes just a moment to compile that. And then we'll go into models and then we'll right click and create a new folder here. So let's call this buildings. We're going to right click and do it one more time and we'll call this characters. And then the last time we'll call this props. Perfect. So now we have 3 folders. Let's go ahead and double click inside of our buildings folder and let's right click and import asset. You can also come up here and say import. So import the assets. We're going to go to our project files folder and I'm going to go to assets, models, and then I have buildings. Now you'll see here that we have several FBX files to choose from. We could import them one at a time, but if you have a large project, you're probably going to have lots and lots of assets. And so what we would want to do is go ahead and import them all at the same time. Now when you import multiple assets at the same time, it's important that you're going to use the exact same settings whenever they are imported. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to select all of these files except for this street. I don't need that one. And I'm going to hit open. So here it brings up our dialog box for our FBX import and it's saying, alright, we're going to apply these settings to all 7 files. Perfect. I'm totally fine with that. Let's go ahead and check unit mesh and materials and you'll see that we have lots of different options to choose from here. The unit mesh and materials section is only going to import the mesh, the materials, and textures that are on it. So let's take a look at our options. We can update any materials that are already existing. I don't have any existing materials, so I'm going to uncheck that. I want to import the textures that are going to be on the models, that are going to be on the materials of the models. If we have existing textures, we can update those, but we don't. Now, I also do not have a textures folder, so I want it to create it for me automatically. Now, whenever you bring in meshes, you want to create a consistency by creating an extra root, and so that will help with the correct space conversion. So I like to have that on. Now if you have multiple files being imported, you can combine those meshes into a single FBX file. If you do that, you can also combine them by their material, if you have that. Now for me, I want each one to be separate, so I'm going to leave those unchecked. Then we have cameras, level of detail, and lights. Those are pretty self-explanatory. The level of detail may not be. Level of detail is going to allow you to import levels of detail of a single model. And so whenever the camera gets really close to a model, it's going to have a higher resolution. If it gets further away, it's going to have a lower resolution. This is great for game optimization. Now I normally have all 3 of these checked because I may be working with an asset that I'm not quite familiar with. And so if it doesn't have a camera or level of detail or lights, it won't come in anyway. So I just keep it checked. Now the final thing that you'll see is animation. I don't have any animations on these assets as they are static animations. So I want to go ahead and uncheck that so it doesn't create any skeletons or import any clips. So now all we have to do is simply hit import and it will start bringing those models into the current folder that we have selected. So you'll see that the model comes in as well as their materials. Now it looks like we have a couple of issues. You'll see that the first model that we have is called Alleyway and is completely black. And the reason for that is because the material is completely black. So how do we take care of this? Obviously there was a problem. Well, it didn't bring in the textures as it should have been. Now, there may have been a broken link or something like that inside of Maya. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at that and figure it out. The great thing about Stingray is it allows us to send it back to Maya or 3ds Max very quickly. We can make the update and then send it right back to Stingray. Let me show you how fast this is. Let's right click on the alleyway model and send to Maya. We'll wait for Maya to come up, and when it does come up, if you have a scene in there before, it's going to ask you if you want to save it. Right now it's telling me, do you want to allow this to this plugin to work in Maya? Yes, I want to allow it. So then it's going to allow it, and it's going to ask me if I want to save my current scene. No, I don't want to save it. And then there's my building. Perfect. So I can come in and I can start to move around and look at my object and inspect that. It looks great. Let's go ahead and open up the Hypershade. Now when the Hypershade opens, we just need to go to the material, so alleyway _ matte, and let's take a look at our properties. You'll see here that it's using the Stingray PBS material, and it's already got a name. Everything is set up. It's using the color map, but you'll see right down here there's no color map in the file. So let's simply click on that, and you'll see we have file 3. We want to insert a texture to this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the image name, and I'm going to browse for that, and I'm going to go to Project Files, Assets, Models, Buildings, Textures, and then right inside of that you'll see Alleyway 2. Let's hit Open. That's going to be applied. I'll close down the Hypershade and then just simply hit Update right here and say Yes on the overwrite. Now let's go back to Stingray and take a look at our model. If we have it selected, you'll see the thumbnail doesn't update, but if you look at the asset preview, you can see the texture is now applied. If you want to update the thumbnail, it's very easy to do. Just simply click on this snapshot and it will create a thumbnail for you. You may have to zoom in and out and pan around a little bit to get that perfect thumbnail that you are looking for. So now that's all set up. You'll see that Disco is kind of the same way. I'm going to show you Disco as well because there are a couple of extra maps that I want to set up. Let's right click, let's send it to Maya. We'll open up Maya. It asks us if we want to save this. No, I'm okay with that. I don't want to save a .ma file. I'm okay with the .fbx. So here we have our Disco. Everything looks good, but we're missing the canopy texture. Let's go to Hypershade. Let's find the Disco awning material. You'll see that it is using a color map, but it's not there. It's missing. Let's browse for the folder that we want, and we are looking for Disco awning. There we go. Perfect. Now one more thing. I want to go to the Disco material, and on the Disco material this is going to be our building, but if we take a look at what it's supposed to be using, we have a color map and an emissive map. That emissive map is missing, so let's go ahead and update that link. So we're going to browse for it just like we had done before, and you'll see Disco, let's see, Disco building _ EMS for emission. So I'm going to open that, and we could also set up some of the properties about that file, but I'm not going to do that right now. We can always take care of that right inside of Stingray. So I'm going to close this down, and you'll see that it's updated here, and I'll update it in Stingray, and then back in Stingray you'll see that it has been updated here in the preview. Let's do a quick snapshot. Perfect. Now one other thing that I want to do is I want to click on the Disco material, and you can see that I have access to those same properties that were there before. So we can see the file for the color map and the emissive map. It's using the color map and the emissive map, and then I can begin to dial in some of the values that are tied to those maps. So the emissive material, or the emissive intensity, is set to 1. Let's go ahead and set that to 4. If we save that by clicking Save here, it will update our preview. So you can see that we're getting a nice little glow there. Let's go ahead and update that snapshot so we can see it. Perfect. So what you'll do is you'll go ahead and you'll do that for the rest of your objects. I just want you to get acquainted with exporting and importing those in. Now if you don't want to do that, I will show you a little bit of a shortcut. So let's take a look at our files. So you'll need to bring up both folders. So as you can see here, I have models, and this is in the assets folder. And then I have models in the content folder. So this is what we see here. So really quickly, let's take a look at our buildings folder, and you'll see that I have lots of different files here. These files were taken from the project, and everything is already set up. If you want, you can go ahead and hit Control A, and you can copy those, and you can paste them right here inside of buildings. Okay. Now, whenever you paste those in, you'll need to restart Stingray for it to update all the textures and all the materials, and you could do that very quickly. And then you can come over to, let's say, characters, and you could do the same thing. You could drop that in. Now I'm going to show you how to bring in those characters, because I want to show you how to bring in animated assets, and we'll do that in our next lesson. So you can also bring in those props, bring those in very quickly, and then paste those in. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quickly with the props. I'm going to take all of these files, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste this in. Now this is just for the tutorial, okay? Normally whenever you are in a production state and you are importing assets, you'll want to import each asset as it goes, okay? You don't want to use this method. This is just to help you with the tutorial to get going faster in the next lesson. So now that that has been updated there, let me go ahead and minimize this. And let me show you the props folder. So you can see here the props folder is not showing anything. But if I close this down and then restart it, it will update that file. All right, so let's go ahead and move on into our next lesson, where we're going to talk about how to import animated assets.